Emma Collins did not look back. The dust rose around her boots as she walked down the only road out of Willow Creek, her small carpet bag clutched tight in her trembling hands. Her chin was high, her back straight, but her heart felt like it had been crushed beneath the very town she had once believed would be her new beginning. She would not cry where they could see her. 6 months earlier, she had arrived in Willow Creek with hope in her eyes and books under her arm. A young schoolteacher from Boston, only 22 years old, determined to bring learning and light to a rough western town. She had believed in fresh starts. She had believed in fairness. She had been wrong. The mayor's wife had never liked her. An educated woman who spoke her mind was not welcome in a place that preferred silence from women. Yet when Emma refused the mayor's brother after he cornered her one evening outside the schoolhouse, the whispers began. By the end of the week, lies had spread faster than prairie fire. They said she behaved improperly with a married father. They said she was not fit to teach children. They said she brought Eastern corruption into their town. Not one person had asked her for the truth. This morning, when the school board told her it would be best if she left quietly, she did not argue. There was nothing left to fight for. As she walked past the general store, people stood on the wooden boardwalk watching her. No one called her name. No one said they were sorry. That silence hurt more than the lies. The stagecoach would not come for 3 days. The nearest town, Silverdale, was 30 miles away. Emma did not care. She would walk if she had to. Better to face coyotes than cruel neighbors. Behind her, hoofbeats sounded on the dirt road. She kept walking. The hoofbeats slowed. A horse came alongside her, matching her pace. "Not alone again," a deep voice said gently. Emma stopped. She turned and looked up into the blue eyes of Ethan Everett. He sat tall on his chestnut horse, his wide shoulders outlined by the rising sun. His hat cast a shadow over his face, but his eyes were clear and steady. "Mr. Everett," she said stiffly, "I am perfectly capable of making my own way." He swung down from the saddle with easy grace. At 28, he carried himself like a man who belonged to the land itself. Calm, strong, certain. "I don't doubt that," he said quietly. "But 30 miles of open country isn't safe for anyone, especially not alone." "I'll take my chances," Emma replied, her voice tight. "The coyotes have more honor than this town." Something hardened in Ethan's expression. "I heard what happened," he said. "I don't believe a word of it." That was almost her undoing. One kind sentence, after months of stares and whispers. She looked away quickly. "Your belief doesn't change anything. I can't stay." "I'm not asking you to," she frowned. "I'm asking you to let me ride with you to Silverdale," he continued. "Once you're there, you can take the train wherever you want. I won't stop you." Emma studied him carefully. She had noticed him before, though they had rarely spoken. He kept to himself in town, tipped his hat when they passed, treated her like she mattered, unlike most. "Why would you leave your ranch for 3 days?" she asked. My foreman can manage," Ethan answered simply. "It's the right thing to do." The right thing. She had almost forgotten what that sounded like. Pride told her to refuse, but the open prairie did not care about pride. "Fine," she said at last. "You may escort me. To Silverdale only." A small smile touched his mouth. "Fair enough." He secured her carpet bag to the saddle, then offered his hand. She hesitated only a moment before placing her hand in his. His palm was warm and rough from honest work. He lifted her onto the horse and swung up behind her, careful, respectful. As they rode away from Willow Creek, Emma allowed herself one final glance back. Figures stood watching. Let them watch, she thought. Let them see what they have done. The prairie opened wide before them. Golden grass stretched to the horizon, whilst the mountains stood distant and silent. They rode in quiet for a long while. Ethan did not press her with questions. He did not try to fill the air with noise. For that, she was grateful. After about an hour, his ranch came into view over a low rise. Emma caught her breath. She had expected something small. Instead, a strong log house stood near tall cottonwoods. A wide barn and corral stretched behind it. Cattle dotted the rolling land beyond. "It's beautiful," she admitted softly. "My father started it with almost nothing," Ethan said. "He believed land was worth more than gold." As they approached, a woman stepped onto the porch. Mrs. Garcia, the housekeeper. Her sharp eyes softened when she saw Emma. "You heard the rumors?" Emma asked quietly once inside. Mrs. Garcia gave a firm nod. "And I do not believe them." The simple words wrapped around Emma like a blanket. She had not realized how badly she needed someone to say that. Over breakfast, plans were made. They would leave at first light. Mrs. Garcia insisted on preparing proper riding clothes and supplies. That night, in a small guest room, Emma lay awake, listening to the sounds of the ranch. Cattle lowing, wind in the trees, voices drifting from the porch below. She heard Mrs. Garcia ask softly, "You admire her?" There was a long pause. "I do," Ethan admitted. Emma's heart stilled. She turned toward the window, staring at the dark sky filled with stars, brighter than any she had seen in Boston. She was leaving. That was settled. Yet for the first time since the lies began, she did not feel entirely broken. At dawn, but she dressed in the sturdy riding skirt Mrs. Garcia had prepared. Ethan waited outside, horses saddled, coffee steaming in the cool air. "Ready?" he asked. Emma looked east, toward Silverdale, toward escape. "Yes," she said. But as they rode side by side into the wide open country, she could not shake the feeling that something unexpected had begun the moment he had said those words. Not alone again. And for the first time in weeks, she did not feel like she was walking away from everything. She felt like she might be riding toward something instead. The second day on the trail felt different. The prairie was wide and open, but Emma no longer felt swallowed by it. She rode beside Ethan instead of in front of him now, her gray mare steady beneath her. The wind moved gently through the tall grass, and the sky stretched blue and endless above them. For the first time since leaving Willow Creek, Emma felt her chest loosen. They spoke more that morning. Ethan told her about growing up on the ranch, about learning to ride before he could properly read, about his father, who believed land was a man's true treasure. He spoke simply, without pride, and Emma found herself listening carefully to every word. "And you?" he asked. "Why did you come west?" Emma smiled faintly. "Freedom. In Boston, my life was already planned. Marriage to a proper man, a tidy house, charity visits." She shook her head. "I wanted to matter." "You do," Ethan said quietly. She looked at him then, surprised by how steady his gaze was. He did not say it to comfort her. He said it like a fact. By late afternoon, dark clouds rolled in from the west, and the wind turned sharp and cold. "We need to reach Miller's Crossing before that storm hits," Ethan said, his eyes scanning the sky. Rain began to fall before they saw the small trading post ahead. The drops came heavy and fast, soaking them within minutes. By the time they reached the wooden building, thunder cracked across the hills. "Go inside," Ethan told her. "I'll see to the horses." Emma hurried into the warmth of the trading post. Several men looked up, surprised to see a woman drenched and alone. Moments later, Ethan entered behind her, rain dripping from his hat. They were offered one room, 2 beds. Emma's cheeks warmed, but she lifted her chin. That will be fine. Upstairs, the room was small but clean. A narrow bed stood on each side. A small iron stove sat near the wall. I'll step out while you change, Ethan said immediately. His quick respect eased her nerves. That night, the storm raged outside while they ate hot stew downstairs. The room was crowded with travelers stranded by the weather. Emma felt the familiar weight of curious eyes. Let them look, Ethan murmured. They don't know you. But they'll assume, she replied softly. People assume what fits their fears, he said. That doesn't make it truth. Later, in the dark of their shared room, lightning flashed against the window. Ethan? She whispered. Yes. Thank you for treating me like I'm worth something. The silence stretched between them. You are worth something, he said at last. More than you know. Sleep did not come easily. Emma lay staring at the ceiling, or listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing across the room. She was supposed to be leaving this world behind, but her heart was beginning to root itself in it. Morning brought clear skies. The storm had passed. Sunlight poured through the window. Ethan was already gone when she woke. Downstairs, he returned carrying a folded newspaper from Willow Creek. His face was tight. What is it? She asked. He handed it to her without speaking. The headline struck her like a blow. The mayor's brother had confessed. The accusations against her had been lies, fabricated out of anger after she rejected him. The town council had voted to clear her name publicly. They were offering her job back. An apology. Emma's hands trembled. She should have felt triumph. Instead, she felt tired. Will you go back? Ethan asked carefully. She stared at the paper. They believed him without question, she said. They pushed me out without asking for the truth. They're trying to make it right, he replied. Too late, she whispered. They left Miller's Crossing and took the high road toward Silverdale. The trail climbed into the hills, offering a wide view of the land below. Everything looked washed clean after the storm. Home isn't always a place, Ethan said suddenly as they rode. Sometimes it's who makes you feel like you belong. She glanced at him sharply. What are you saying? He was quiet for a long moment. I'm saying that these past days, I've realized I don't want to say goodbye in Silverdale. Her pulse quickened. He drew his horse closer to hers. I admired you from afar in Willow Creek, he continued. But riding beside you, hearing your heart. Emma, I care for you. The wind moved softly around them. She swallowed. I don't want to say goodbye either, she admitted. They stopped in a quiet clearing to rest the horses. The world felt still. I don't want you to leave, Ethan said, stepping closer. Stay at the ranch. Build your school there. Stay with me, not as a guest. He hesitated only a second. As my wife. Emma's breath caught. It was sudden. It was bold. But it felt right. You barely know me, she said softly. I know enough, he answered. She thought of Willow Creek, of whispers, of cold stares. Then she thought of the way he had ridden beside her without hesitation. Not alone again. Tears filled her eyes. Yes, she whispered. Yes, Ethan. His smile broke wide and bright as the sunrise. He stepped forward slowly, and giving her time to pull away. She did not. When he kissed her, it was gentle, steady, certain. They did not continue to Silverdale. Instead, they turned their horses back toward Everett Ranch. Emma looked at the wide-open land around them and felt something she had not felt in months. Peace. Willow Creek could keep its apology. She had found something better. They rode home side by side, speaking of a school in the east wing of the house, of children who lived too far from town, of building something stronger than gossip. When the ranch came into view, Mrs. Garcia stood on the porch. She took one look at their faces and smiled knowingly. "Back already?" she called. Ethan grinned. Change of plans. He turned to Emma, his hand warm around hers. "Welcome home." Emma looked at the house, at the land stretching wide and golden under the setting sun. For the first time, she felt like she was not running from anything. She was choosing. And she was not alone. Wait, before we move on, what do you think about the story so far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious to know. Emma never thought she would ride back into Willow Creek with her head high, but she did. The next morning, she and Ethan drove into town in his wagon, not hiding, not rushing, not ashamed. The same wooden building stood along the dusty road. The same faces turned to look at her. Only this time, the whispers were different. The mayor met them outside his office, hat in hand. His face was red with embarrassment. "Miss Collins," he began, "the town owes you an apology." Emma stood tall beside Ethan. "Yeah, I accept your apology," she said calmly. "But I will not be returning to the school." The mayor blinked. "You won't?" "No," she replied. "I am to be married. I'll be opening a school at Everett Ranch for the children who cannot travel to town." Murmurs rose from the people gathered nearby. Married? To Ethan Everett? Emma felt Ethan's steady presence beside her. His hand rested gently at the small of her back. For once, the town's opinions did not shake her. They went to the schoolhouse one last time so she could gather her books. The room was empty, sunlight falling across the small desks where children had once struggled to write their letters. A small voice called her name. She turned to see Sarah Jenkins running toward her, braids bouncing. "Miss Collins!" the girl cried. "Are you coming back?" Emma knelt and smiled gently. "I'll still be teaching," she said. "Just somewhere new." Sarah's face brightened. "That's good. Billy Cooper never learned proper because he lives too far out." Emma laughed softly. "Then Billy Cooper will have a place in my classroom." As they drove away from Willow Creek for the last time, Emma did not look back with sadness. She felt free. The wedding took place 2 weeks later under a bright blue sky at Everett Ranch. Neighbors came from miles around. Families who had once struggled without schooling for their children stood proudly in their Sunday clothes. Even a few of her former students made the long ride to see their teacher marry the cowboy who had ridden beside her. Emma wore a simple ivory dress. Her auburn hair was braided and crowned with tiny white flowers. But she did not look like the disgraced teacher who had walked out of town. She looked strong. When her father arrived from Boston with her mother and sister, he stepped down from the wagon and studied the land with quiet surprise. "This is your life now?" he asked. "It is," Emma said proudly. Ethan shook her father's hand firmly. "Sir, I promise you, she will never walk alone again." Her father's eyes softened. "That is all I need to hear." Under an arbor of climbing roses, with the prairie wind moving gently around them, Emma and Ethan spoke their vows. "I choose you," Emma said, her voice steady. "Not because I need saving, but because you stand beside me." "And I choose you," Ethan replied, "because you are the bravest woman I've ever known." When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, the cheers echoed across the open land. The school opened a month later. The east wing of the ranch house was filled with desks, books, and laughter. 15 children sat in neat rows, some older than Emma had ever taught before, eager to learn their letters properly. Ethan often stood at the doorway in the evenings, watching as Emma erased the chalkboard and closed her books. "You look happy," he would say. "I am," she would answer truthfully. One cool autumn evening, months after their wedding, they sat together on the porch wrapped in a blanket. The sky was deep and wide, stars scattered like lanterns overhead. "Any regrets?" Ethan asked softly. Emma leaned against him and listened to the cattle in the distance. "None," she said, "except maybe that I waited so long to leave Willow Creek." Ethan smiled. "If you hadn't walked out that day, I wouldn't have ridden beside you." She looked up at him. "You said something that morning," she reminded him. He nodded. "Not alone again." She took his hand. "I thought I was losing everything," she said. "But I was walking toward my life." Ethan kissed her forehead gently. "You were never meant to face it alone." The wind moved softly through the tall grass. The ranch stood strong behind them. Inside, the small classroom waited for morning. Emma had tried to leave town alone, but the cowboy had ridden beside her, and in doing so, he had given her more than protection. He had given her partnership. He had given her partnership. He had given her home. And as the stars burned bright over the wide western sky, Emma Collins Everett knew one thing with complete certainty. She would never walk alone again.